Hello and welcome back to my daily speed modeling challenge, where today we are making this screwdriver. As always, leave a comment if you have a challenge for me. And with that, our time starts now. As is usual, our first step in the whole process is going to be finding reference photos. So we'll just hop in to Google and find screwdriver. So there's a lot of good options here. I'm thinking we could make either a set of screwdrivers like this, because you can see they're all very much similar. They sort of come up in this sort of like a point and come down. It's the same object with just some scale applied to it, and then the tip of it is different. So we could do a set of screwdrivers like this, or we could do one screwdriver screwing in a screw, like a bit of an action shot, or we could do a whole variety of things. But I think I'll just start with doing one screwdriver and doing it well. And I'm not even going to use a reference for this because I know what a screwdriver looks like, and I, quite frankly, don't care about using any particular company's branding for making my screwdriver. So let's begin with a plane, and we'll bring it to the center, add in our subsurf modifier, or actually no, we won't use a plane. I'll start off with a cylinder, move it to the center and make it, vertical. And I want to just scale it down, and then I'll go ahead and scale it up on the Z axis. And this, for starters, is going to be the base mesh that I'm going to use for the tool end of the screwdriver itself. So I think that's a good size. So we're also going to need another cylinder for the handle, and I'll bring it down, scale it down on the Z, scale it up on everything except the Z. And I just want to get the ratio right of, tool to tool handle to tool. So looking at this reference image, it looks like this is a little over, maybe it's like a length and a third. So this is about double. So this is a bit long. That looks about right to me. Here it's about, or actually it should be to that line. So the handle's a bit long. So with that, or if we move it down here, move it back to there. So it's on the second line. So we can move it up to the second line and see that it's about a length and exactly a third almost. So that's perfect for me. So for the shape of this, I want to object and shade smooth by angle. I'll do the same thing with this guy, object, shade smooth by angle. And I'll do, let's see, what should I do? I'll make it, here's what I'll do. So I'll go into a top view, and I want to make a screwdriver with this kind of handle. And the way that's going to work is I'll add a couple loop cuts, and then down here, I'll just nudge in some of the vertices, and that will be pretty much it for the modeling. So I'll have a loop cut up here, a loop cut up here, and then I'll do another loop cut just right below it. We'll do another loop cut to define where all these little ridges are, another loop cut to define the transition into this section, and with that, that is going to be it for our loop cuts. Maybe I'll add one down here, or maybe I won't do that. So maybe instead of adding a loop cut down there, we can just come in and just bevel that edge later, because we're actually gonna need a bevel on a lot of these edges. So for starters, we can begin by scaling this up on everywhere but the Z, and then we can scale this whole handle up again on everywhere but the Z, and that looks good to me. Oh, in terms of the thickness of the handle, actually, let's consider that for a second. It looks a bit thick to my eyes right now, so just bring it down. And on both of these, let's go ahead and just apply the scale real quick, just to make sure that everything in our modifiers later will apply correctly. Open space, apply scale. There we go. All right, so what we'll do is we'll hop into, no, this will be fine. I'll just select a couple faces. So I know there's 32, so it needs to be divisible by 8. So I'm thinking I just skip every 2 and just grab them and see how that ends up. I'm not going to do the math because we have time, and we can just work around this and see how it ends up in terms of how many are left over. And that's about perfect. So what we can do is scale these in on the Z. And to me, that actually looks wrong. So I'll deselect each of the left faces. So it's 3 in between, because I want the divots to be smaller than the outside part. So I'll just scale it in a bit like that, and that's pretty close to being enough for the purpose of this model, actually. One thing I'll want to do is I want to select this, and then I think it's mark sharp. So that's sharp. And then I also want to mark both of these as sharp, mark sharp. I want to deselect these edges in the middle. So I'll go to edge select mode, grab those guys, zoom in, grab these guys, deselect you. Can I unmark sharp? Or maybe I can mark smooth, mark sharp, tab. Okay, maybe there's an option in the edge up here, edge clear sharp. That's what it is. So we'll grab these and clear sharp. Okay, that is almost perfect. The last thing I'll want to do is add in that's not how I want it. Go to vert select this, and I'll just add in a bit of a bevel downstairs. And if that ain't a tool, I don't know what is, to be honest. Okay, we can hop into modeling the tool end, where I think I want to make a flathead screwdriver, so not complicated at all. We just throw on a loop cut, bring it up. That seems about appropriate for the tool handle. Then I'll bring this guy in there, or no. What I'll do is I'll begin by scaling these along the y-axis, just like so. So that's already looking pretty good in my view. I'll add this because it looks like these all sort of bow out on the side. Is that true, or is that an illusion of the... No, there is some extra metal on the sides there. So then we can take this, scale it on the X just a bit. What we can also do is we can make sure this has a flat face on it. So we can select just a bunch of vertices, or we can even box select down like that, SX0. No, SY0. That's not how we want it. You know what? It's fine as is. It passes the sniff test. So then I want to select both of these vertices, and I want to turn on proportional editing and drag them down just on the Z, because now what we're going to do is select this edge and mark sharp so that it has that sort of defined point there. And yeah, I fear that I was right about this needing to be, you know, moved in a bit. It's looking flatter. And from a distance, honestly, that looks fine to me, but I also need to grab it there, scale it that way as well to make this a true flathead. And I don't think any of the flatheads have the exact same width up there as they do for the diameter of the tool head. So that right there is a screwdriver, and that's a good start. I'm gonna just start with that. So I'll add in a sunlight, and we can begin making our scene. So we want the light just for the sake of making our materials. And I've been really trying to work on my transmissive materials, and that means materials that are see-through, for example, glass, or like in this reference photo that we've been looking at, you know, sort of transparent plastic like this. So I think I'm going to try to make this effect where it has the tool end and you can see through the handle to see the exposed tool end. Like I have the tool end coming into the screwdriver handle quite a bit there. So I'll go ahead and try to get that set up a bit. Okay, so I've just added blank materials to them, and there's a sunlight, and I think for the color of the world, I want to make it just a more desaturated gray again, maybe even a bit, it can be a bit lighter, that's fine. But I think that's honestly good for lighting for now. So for shading, we just want to make, and why don't we skip the principled BSDF? Why don't we start with a glass BSDF? And from here, we can just make it into, you know, a real proper glass texture. So we'll use alpha hash, which is I think how we want things, question mark. Maybe alpha blend. Nope, it's not being responsive for that. So one thing I want to find out is what is the IOR of this reflective plastic? So IOR of see-through plastic. So here is this list on pixel and poly, and I see a number on the base there that I'll use. So for the glass BSDF, it looks like we want to set it to like 1.4 or something, and Blender is not responding to me at the moment, but that is fine. We shall move on and make it work. Yeah, the node editor isn't working for me for a second. Okay, we're back. So I think I saw like a 1.466 for that, what's it called? For the IOR of the screwdriver, or of the plastic, not the screwdriver. So I want to make the color, come on. Yeah, none of my clicks are working here. I'm wondering if it's because this is such a big file. I've used one file for all of my challenges. I'm wondering if that's just a lot for my memory to handle, but it looks like things are working again. Yeah, so I'll make it a yellow hue, or maybe I'll do orange. Maybe I'll do an orange flathead and a blue Phillips head. And that could be a nice sort of Blender homage, I suppose. So it doesn't like that color. So maybe if I make it a bit lighter, and then I also think it might be worth it to have a plane as our background. Or we'll rotate it on the X, scale it up, do Y. And for the camera framing, why don't we pull a camera to view, and we can just move it so that this one will be on our left here, and our other Phillips head is going to be on the right. So we can just do like that. And that is totally good with me. And it might also be worth it to add an area light, or X, move that out, and Shift D it over here. Beautiful. And the color of this one, or the power of this one, it'll be 500. And we can adjust these later on. It'll be 500 and 500. I want the blue one to have an orange light, and I want the orange one to have a bit of a blue light. And that'll just be a bit of an effect I'll get going there. So let's hop into rendered view. And I think one of the things that was causing a problem is that I'm having a lot of samples in my viewport. So I don't think that's how I want it to be. So I'll just render, and you can see it's super crummy down there. So why don't we render it out with one more sample? So that's not how we want it to be. So I'm thinking maybe one thing that could work is if we hop back into solid view, and we, instead of relying on the transmission of the shader, we can make the face, or make the tool appear in the geometry. So we can just scale it up like this so that we know it's, you know, not on the tool, not like touching, not intersecting the tool head at any point. And then we can extrude down to, why don't we go about there? Yeah, that looks about good to me. Okay. Let's give it another go. Render image. Okay, so maybe screen space reflections and screen space refraction. Ambient occlusion is on, bloom is on, bloom doesn't need to be on. Maybe if we give it more samples in the render, let's give it another render and see how it looks. Okay, still completely opaque pretty much. So what does our shader look like? No roughness, it has just a color. How about just normal GTX? Maybe Beckman. I don't know what these settings do, but we'll test it. None of the above is working. So why don't we just start with a principled and give it a surface, give it a nice orange hue, give it a metallic, no, make it fully transmissive, question mark, and it's still not working. So we have alpha hashed, shadow mode, alpha hashed as well, I guess, backface culling on, ray trace refractions, that's the setting we wanted. It's been my bad the whole time. Okay, all right, it's perfect. Okay, so we'll turn the transmission on pretty much all the way, the ROR down to, like I said, 1.466, and the roughness, what we'll do is we'll add a noise texture and we'll add a little bit of wear to it. So I'll hop in a texture view for a second, just solid view, just so I'm not overloading my render. So we'll add a color ramp in between the noise texture and the roughness. What we can do is sort of shore up the roughness of our screwdriver and make it just look amazing. So I mapped the texture coordinate and now we can adjust the scale. So I want the splotches to be bigger and the 0 is going to be the fully like not rough at all and the 1 is going to be completely rough. So I don't think I want anything 100% rough. So I think you can turn it down to like about half like that and sort of crunch it up on the base. So let's see how that looks. Our textured view, you gotta give it a minute, gotta let it cook. And then we have, it's in textured view as well. So that's fine. But we can also use this noise texture as a bump. And this is a classic technique. I just showed this off in my anchor video, if you're coming from that or if you haven't seen that. So we'll use that. And then the strength of this, as always, we got to crank it way down to like 0.1, save, and let's give it a render and see how it looks. Okay, so the colors are bad, but that is a start. We can work with bad colors, but we can't work with, just nothing going on. So for one, make it more saturated, make it brighter. Let's see how that looks. Beautiful, looking much better already, and I like the gloss. I want more gloss on this even. Beautiful. And then I also don't like how sharp the angles are. So I'm gonna add in a bevel amount. Needs to be a little bit smaller, 0.05 maybe. And we'll add in a couple more segments. Make that not visible in the viewport just to save us on some compute. Then what I'll do is I'll duplicate this on the X, go to layout, and we'll make this into a Phillips head really quickly. And that's gonna be super simple because all we'll do is go into top view and we'll just grab these two vertices, turn on proportional editing, scale them out along the Y direction, but we'll make it so that it has a really sharp fall off. And wait, we need more, and we'll change the fall off to sharp. So there we go. That's not the fall off we want. Maybe inverse square, scale. Nope, or no, scale along the Y. No, maybe it does need to be sharp as we scale along the Y. Perfect. Okay. Or even, wait, you know what? Whatever. Scale along the Y till it's about the same size, and then we'll grab these. 4, scale them in, it's sharper. Does it look like a Phillips head? That is the question. I think it does appear to be a Phillips head screwdriver, although it does need to come to more of a point up top, so we can grab these and just scale it down. That's not how we want it. Why don't we extrude it up and scale it down? And then we want to adjust the height until it about matches the angle, although not entirely. So scale it up, down, scale it up, a bit down. Okay, still not matching entirely, so scale it up. And we want to mark this rather as clear, sharp. Okay, I'm thinking that's a Phillips head, at least good enough for our purposes. And then for this material, shading, handle, we'll duplicate it, and instead of orange, we'll add what, plus 0.5 to the hue? And a little too blue, but actually it looks good. Sure, that works. Now for the tool head, yep, you both have the tool head. The base color is going to be sort of grayish, and we'll crank the metallic up, and the roughness should have some noise, as always. This is a classic. This is pretty much just click here to add a little bit of realism, and we'll control shift click a better view. Looks bad. Make it object coordinates. Looks much better. Crank the scale way up. Add in a color ramp to the roughness, and I want again fewer sections of complete roughness, so a bit like this looks good to me. So I'll plug that in there. Fully metallic IOR of metal. Let's go with that. IOR, there's some values in here, so let's click on this and see if it tells us. Okay, awesome. Here's a chart of some IOR levels. We have air, we have bronze. I think we went like stainless steel kind of thing. Is there a stainless? A, B, C, D, F, G, D materials, E. Wait, steel next. Okay, steel is 2.50. All right, 2.5. So now let's just give this a quick render and see how it looks. Okay, I'm wondering if that's the IOR that we chose for this. So why don't we get rid of this and change it back to 1.5, render it out, Let's see how it looks. Okay, still a bit disgusting looking. Maybe we need more light. A bigger sun, render image. There is more light, so maybe we need to adjust the roughness on this. So we'll render that out. Okay, it looks better. So it looks like maybe this is too dark. Render image. Okay, and it already looks better, but I don't like the pattern of the, what's it called, of the noise. So I think actually I'll try to make it like a brushed effect by scaling it just on the Z, stretching it way out, rather maybe to 1, and then scaling it in on the Y and on the X too, and maybe that'll give it a bit of like a brushed steel look to it. So we can render that, or no, Control Shift click and render image. So I think that's better. I'm still not too happy with that, but so far for 30 minutes, I think it looks pretty good. So now I think I need to touch up on some details of the handle because I don't like how the shadows are handled in there. Or maybe even we can just add in like a bunch more render passes and then even add in, no, performance, nothing, curves, nothing, shadows, nothing. So let's just render this out and see how it looks. Okay, so adding render passes did help fix some of our shadow issues there, but I'm wondering if when we hop into layout, if we can edit the handle such that we scale it down even more. So we'll see how that looks. So the image, so the screwdriver on the right is going to be the one with the closer, and it looks like it's about the exact same thing. So let's just not bother with scaling it out, undo that, and let's add a bit of pizzazz to our scene. Maybe should parent this, Control P, select, Control P, and the background. What should the background be? Shading, new material, it should be in render preview. White is a bit boring. Maybe we tint it green, tint it pink, tint it blue, tint it nothing. Turn the value up, make it even wider, tint it a bit. I want to push it a bit cooler, just a bit. And then the issue is that makes this a bit, a bit too greenish. So I'll push this warmer. And then for you, I want to make you a bit darker as well. So I'll push it in the same direction, or rather towards the same pole. That did not apply. I right clicked and didn't left. So there we go. Some blender screwdrivers. We can play around. We can play around with the layout, maybe cross them in like that, render image, and those are some pretty good screwdrivers if you ask me. Still have about 38 seconds. How can we change some things? Maybe we can, maybe we add a light that has these guys cast a shadow onto the background. That could be cool. So I'll play around with the lighting, make it so that these guys are casting a shadow, and we'll call that some blender screwdrivers in 30 minutes. And with that has been speed modeling a screwdriver in 30 minutes. I hope you like what we got done. If you liked it, leave a like. As always, leave a comment if you have a challenge for me. And with that, thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.